Hey, I'm Eric from Sportfish Outfitters. We're here today with Jonathan from Lat 26, and we're going to talk a little bit about general boat maintenance for Sportfish boats and center consoles, which is what we happen to specialize in. So welcome to the shop.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? How'd you get involved in the marine industry?
Oh boy. Well, I got into the yachting industry quite by accident back in 1994. That's when I went to school. I went to school for Chapman School of Seamanship up in Stuart, Florida, for those people that are from Stuart there.
Yeah.
Great school, by the way. I absolutely loved it. Great hands-on training. And actually, it's funny, I wasn't planning on getting into the yachting industry. I didn't know anything about that. In 94, it was a very small community.
And when was that?
94.
So that's when I pretty much came down to South Florida in 94 also.
Okay.
And got my captain's license in Lauderdale right after that. So it was right around the same time.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So you know the industry at that time. It was a secret.
Yeah.
It was this small little industry.
Yeah.
And I came down. I was actually doing it not to get into yachting. It was because I was a sailor.
Okay.
And I was one of those blow boaters. And I was going to buy a sailboat and then sail around the world and write for magazines.
Which it comes like full
idea.
circle, because it's like you think about that now, and now I'm like, man, now I kind of think I want to do that now. You know, like
it's interesting how that is.
So,
well, I found out about the industry. That's how I found out that there was people. Their crew.
Yeah.
They have recreational boats where that are big enough where people can actually live on these boats.
Get paid to do this also.
Exactly, and so I stepped into that, or I sidestepped into that industry, and then thinking I was just going to spend a year or two.
Sure.
And I watched the industry grow, and I kind of grew with it. So that's kind of my background. I started off as a mate after school and became a first officer and left as a first officer.
Yeah, and then depending on who you work for and with, you pick up a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happens on my side too, on the Sportfish side. Being really lucky, a lot of you may or may not know, like we kind of started this whole thing through just working on boats and being around crews that were really professional crews. Mm-hmm. And you see all these little details for how they keep boats perfect and stuff like that. And it's like, man, I want to learn what they're doing because, everybody else's boats don't look like this. Why do their boats look better?
Right.
So, we learn and we grow. And now that's what's exciting about what we do, that we can be with people like you today and learn about new products and figure out what works.
Sure.
Yeah, so we can get into it a little bit. I think in general, what have you learned over the years that you see that people do, or general tips and techniques that might be helpful for our customers or people listening?
Oh boy, that's a big
It's
one.
a loaded question, but anything in particular
actually
stands out?
I have seen a lot change when it comes to the cosmetic side of the industry. And we're just going to go ahead and call it the cosmetic side, the cleaning side, the polishes, the protection side.
Which general maintenance kind of thing.
That's right. Making boats look pretty.
Sure.
That's the key. I've seen a lot of changes happen because back when you and I started, it was in the 90s. We didn't have a lot of products. I mean, really, there weren't a lot of products. There was small boat products that were also being utilized for this yachting industry. And
there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't Google.
There was exactly.
Unless you heard about it or you
on the dock
somehow have some magic, you could figure it out.
There was always an old salt to tell you this will work and this won't.
Sure.
So a lot of trial and error over the years, especially in the yachting industry. In the yachting industry, people say, like you said, it's like, why do those boats look all pretty and shiny?
Yeah.
Well, it's because they had a full-time crew taking care of that.
Yeah. So full-time crew, I mean, what that gets into as far as general tips and techniques is continuous maintenance. Not waiting.
Washing
saying,
every week.
Okay, right.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Taking care of.
So that's a big thing. I think that's a huge thing that people forget about, is that the more you do simple things, that overall the boat looks better.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. In addition to that, I mean, like I said, knowing products, that's an important thing to do. And it's as true as today as it is or was back then, is, sifting through what's on the market, what's on the shelves, and choosing something that's going to be good for that particular surface that you're dealing with, because there are a lot of great products out there.
Sure.
But they're designed specifically for this. And I've seen a lot of people like, well, this product, will work for everything. No product is a one-size-fits-all product.
Well, in different styles of boating or the elements and what the boat's exposed to.
The surfaces.
So the surface itself in conjunction with whatever your boating is or where your boat sits or all that kind of thing. So,
That's right. That all of those things are factors in finding the right product for the surface. But that's the thing, is like finding the right product for the surface. Obviously knowing how to use it properly, but boy, tips and techniques. I mean, we can talk for hours and hours on this.
And days.
But I guess getting back to the general point there, it comes down to making sure you've got the right products for what you're working on. I start with that, and like I said, I can really expound on that topic, but it starts with that. Secondly, is using it properly.
Yep.
You can have the greatest product in the world. You use it the way it wasn't designed for, it's not going to work.
Yep.
So using it properly, that's very important. Thirdly is accessories, things to use with that product to make it work even better.
Which is interesting because, so I struggle a little bit with the website and how to make things easier for people to find and stuff like that. But we go into this thing where, okay, there's all these products that you use, but then there's the tools.
Right.
And they're maintenance tools. They're not your traditional, what you would think of as tools, but you have rags, applicators, brushes, chamois, all that stuff that I consider tools.
Right.
And then you have your materials that you use with those tools in order to get the job done.
Well, that's a tough thing. When you talk about definitions in this industry, especially when it comes to marketing of, even just, in the marine industry, marine marketing definitions change all the time.
Correct.
So you say tools, other people might say accessories. Products, generally liquid substances.
Yep, exactly.
That would be products.
Yep.
And then
in a bottle.
That's right, in a bottle. It's a tough thing because you're always dealing with, changing definitions of words. But
and we can go on about that forever too, obviously.
I guess for the purpose of this conversation, let's just talk tools and accessories. Let's just make that a leg.
Sure.
Okay. And there are three legs really to making your surface look good. And that's tools and accessories.
Yep.
Technique above all. Knowledge and technique. And then the third would be your products.
Well, it's a very good point because I think it's kind of one of those pick two, like cheap, fast, and good and all those kinds of things we talked about. Well, it's like, okay, cool. You can have an amazing product and you can have all these tools and accessories, and without the skills to properly...
It'll never come out well.
It doesn't come out
It'll never come out 100%.
Which is a great point.
You have to have all three in order for it to come out
Very
great.
good point.
Yeah.
So what do you see, getting into the next topic, the main things you see that people do incorrectly?
Oh, boy. Once again, hours, guys.
Exactly.
What do I see people do incorrectly?
Major offenders.
Okay, I'll tell you one thing I see most often.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that people do most often. That's wash the boat.
Yeah.
They wash their boat and they let soap dry. It's one of those things that I'm sure you heard of back in the 90s.
Sure.
You never let soap dry on a surface. Yep. So I see that. I still see it today with newbies. It doesn't matter if it's in yachting. It doesn't matter if it's do-it-yourselfer, washing your boat. They go out there and they'll start washing a surface and they don't rinse and that stuff dries and they go back, well, I'll just rinse it off later.
Yep.
They're already starting to damage the surface.
Yep.
So that right there is probably the biggest thing that I see is not rinsing properly. Pre-rinse your surface, use your soap while it's still wet, guys, before it dries, rinse that soap off.
Yep.
Because
in sections and just a little bit at a time. It can be overwhelming sometimes.
Right. It is. You just don't go and wash your whole boat and then come back and it's dry and rinse it off. You need to do sections. You need to, plan that time. It's like, okay, it's 90 degrees in Florida today and there's no rain in sight, which usually doesn't happen, but let's say there's no rain in sight. I'm going to have to do, this 15 square foot or 20 or 30 square foot area before it dries. I'll rinse it. I'll go ahead and wash it and I'll rinse that off. I will say this, that if you do it once, you're not going to damage the surface immediately, but it's over time.
It's a habit. If you create a habit, it's a problem.
Exactly.
And also overwashing, over cleaning things, that kind of thing, doing too much when you don't really need to. It kind of is a slippery slope because you decide, do you spot clean Like if you see black streaks or certain areas of the boat, do you go and say, hey, okay, I'm going to go before I wash the boat and do an assessment? I had a conversation with somebody the other day about that. They just go out and start rinsing and washing the boat. They don't even know what areas they're focusing on. By the time the boat's soapy or wet or whatever, they don't see anything.
That's a very good point. You know, you have to assess your situation. You know, what are you dealing with? Are you dealing with exhaust?
Yep.
You know, on the hull and the transom.
Soot
Are you
from
dealing
the
Are you dealing
elements,
with black
whatever.
streaks?
Yep.
You know, so figuring out what you're going to need. That's an important. You have to do an assessment
Sure.
of it. But you know, another thing you were talking about, things that I see aside from boat soap is the fact that, again, I don't see people doing assessments and using products properly.
Yep.
Oh boy, that's a big one. I see that's probably even bigger than boat soap.
Yeah, it probably
is
makes sense.
people using the wrong product for the wrong surface.
Yeah.
It is a pervasive problem
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
industry.
yeah,
They will use something they say, well, this is good enough. Or this was great for my car.
Sure.
This will translate to the marine environment. Generally, it doesn't, especially when you get into coatings
Yep.
and waxes
Yep.
and sealants. All three of those words.
Yeah.
Coatings, waxes, and sealants. They say it's good enough for a car. It'll be good enough for a boat.
Yeah, and that's a
it's
whole nother
completely
get
different
into a
environment.
whole nother scenario.
We can get into
there,
it.
yeah.
But that's one of
yes,
the biggest
for
problems
sure.
is not using the right product
Yeah.
for the right environment, for the right surface.
You know, looking at different surfaces. And again, this is something we've talked about before, where if you have something that's super shiny or it's clear, a clear enclosure, you know, or a very shiny surface, you have to really pay attention to what you're using and what you're doing. You may use cleaners and degreasers in some places, non-skid, whatever the case may be, that it's okay if you kind of wander outside that range of products sometimes, and maybe it does the job, but I think that's a big thing.
It is.
So
It is. Like I said, we can go on and on and on
Yeah.
about different things that I see that are done, in my estimation, that are done wrong.
yeah,
Like you said, you know, there are people that use products outside what they're trying to do. Another thing that I see being done, and I think this is important, is people use a lot of cleaners.
yep,
And they kind of, I start using this. This is the downward spiral.
Yeah.
This is, if you start using cleaners, especially strong cleaners, like you've
Yeah.
got exhaust on your hull and you've got black streaks, I'm going to use that strong cleaner. It's going to wipe it off. Great. Okay. And then what? Well, the next time it happens, I'm going to use that strong cleaner again and again. And each time you do that if you don't have some sort of protection on it, if you don't go into the protection side, if you just decide to go the cleaning side,
yeah,
you're going to have to be using a stronger cleaner each time because you're damaging that surface. And you get that downward spiral
Yep.
until you end up getting to that paint job, guys, or
Yeah.
or that re-gel
Or
coat.
you-
But that's
you've taken off everything that you worked so hard to put on.
that's another thing too. So yeah, I see that more often than not as well. People using stronger and stronger cleaners instead of saying, how do I prevent this from happening, as opposed to, you know, getting out the stronger and stronger degreaser.
Yeah, cool. I think so. I guess we could probably really talk about top to bottom, so general wash downs, which we can quickly get into. That's not really a super detailed thing, but
No.
making sure you're using the right boat soap, making sure that you're using soft mitts and soft brushes on things that are shiny surfaces. And, you know, not washing too much. So rinse and chamois may be good enough sometimes, and just being cautious. So I don't think we need to get too deep into that. It really,
Not really.
you know, hopefully
Using
people understand
using the
that.
appropriate brushes, I will say that. When we're going to tools and accessories,
Yeah.
use the appropriate tools, like you said, wash mitts, caking easy. Boat soaps, the key with boat soaps is a nice mild boat soap.
Yeah.
No, and I will say this to you guys, do not use dishwashing soap on your boats. Please do not do that unless you want to paint in 2 years.
And
Because-
what's happening at that point when they're using those dish soaps?
I have seen a boat that has been painted. Brand new paint job, guys. Brand new. And the paint job was nice. It
Sure.
was done well. They took joy to the soap.
Yep.
Or to the paint. And they will use that every week because they were told this is how you wash a boat. And
Sure.
they were actually told that dishwashing soap was actually a gentle, mild soap to use on the surface. In 2 years, they needed to repaint the boat. 2 years, guys. Two years.
Yeah.
That's how damaging dishwashing soap can be to a surface. So mild soaps mild boat soaps, guys. Mild boat soaps.
Yeah, and that's a weekly thing. So when we do
Yeah.
that, so you start to get into your basic waxing. And I'm talking about a perfect surface. I'm not getting into if it's chalky or damaged or whatever. We're just talking about basic good practices if you're washing weekly and stuff like that. So what we can talk about applicators really, and just because we have them sitting here, foam applicators versus terry or microfiber or whatever. What's your take on that?
Well, again, going into tools and accessories. So terry towels are great to have on board, whether it be a terry towel applicator here or terry towels in general. I like to use them on decks. I think they're very good for decks, whether it be light non-skid decks, like a painted non-skid deck, or if you're using an antique or any type of bare wood surface, or even oiled wood surface. But you want to use it on something like that. They're very good. You're also very good for bilges. You just need some rags to toss.
Yep.
Great for that. Do not use these on paint, gel coats. Certainly not on things like polycarbonates like isinglass or strata-glass.
And we have a lot of guys that do. I mean, a lot of people use regular foam or microfiber applicators in their regular wax application.
Well, you can use microfiber. You can use microfibers. You can use foam. But when it comes to terry towels, and this is a terry towel, you don't want to use this on any fine surface that's going to be easily scratched.
So hear that, guys. The microfiber definitely makes a difference versus the terry cloth.
It does make a difference.
Okay.
You need all three.
Yep.
You really do. You need foams. You need terry towels. You need microfibers on board because you're dealing with different surfaces. The microfibers, especially if you get good microfibers, you're going to use those for your cleanups. You're going to use those for your waxes and your polishes, and you're going to use those for your things like isinglass. You can use that with isinglass for applying sealants or wiping a sealants off. So microfibers have their place, have them on board. Terry towels have their place, have those on board. And foams have their place, have those on board too. This one here, this is you get a polishing side here. You get a high density yellow foam on this side. So that would be for polishing, usually hand polishing.
Yep.
And then over here on the black, this is a softer foam here.
Okay.
Softer, finer foam, which is used for applying sealants and waxes.
Okay.
So
where you're not trying to cut it all, you're really just trying to surface coat.
You're surface coating. You're putting on a wax. You're putting on a sealant. You're putting on something to protect it. This is not going to provide any polishing capability.
Yep.
This is just going to provide.
And the other side will a little bit?
Would be for polishing.
Okay.
Yeah, using polishes with this high density side. So you're going to have situations, a fender rub or something like that, where you're going to want a foam with a polish in a situation where you're doing it by hand.
Yep.
And then you're going to be applying your sealants on top of that. So foams, important, microfibers, terry towels, they all have their place.
Excellent.
And you should have all of them on board.
Okay. Do you want to talk machine versus hand application, or do you want to talk wax, polymer, ceramics first?
Well, let's talk about the machine versus hand.
Okay.
Hand is good because we've got one here. So hand polishing is going to be good for small areas. Don't think you're going to do your boat by hand.
Yep.
You really shouldn't.
Yeah.
Not unless you've got a lot of time and nothing.
And a lot of people.
That's right. You have nothing else to do. Generally, hand is going to be for small areas. It's going to be for, as I mentioned, like the fender rubs. You get those. You're going to have some scratches. You don't have a machine on board, or if it's it's a small area, pull this out. You have to do a step. You've got a couple of steps. Machines aren't going to fit. This is where you're going to, this is where it's going to come in handy.
So the two surfaces together. So say you do take two small areas and you use one by hand and the other one you do with the machine. If you're using the same material and you're doing it properly, should they both look the same? I mean, is it going to be consistent?
No.
Okay, so this is something to get
absolutely
into.
Not.
So where you have seams or radiuses or whatever that you can have transition areas to say, okay, I'm going to use the machine here and I'm going to do this by hand and I need to make sure that I'm not doing both.
That's exactly right. That's why I say, steps, fender rubs, stuff like that, where you've got, if you're on a large yacht, then of course you're going to go to a machine because usually fender rubs are huge.
Yeah.
But on small boats, it's going to be an area like this. Yep. You can blend it in fairly well. Will you get that machine look? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Machine just gives you it gives you a much, much better look.
Yep.
But there are areas machines can't fit. Even the small ones. They've got small ones out. There are small polishers that
there's a couple brands that have them.
Yeah, Milwaukee I know has one, like a little pistol polisher with a battery
Got to be
great.
careful with those too, though, because they get going.
Oh, they will.
Maybe you can do some damage if you're not
If
careful.
you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, that's technique, right? Yeah. But nevertheless, there are some that can give you that machine look. But for the most part, if you're not, and most people aren't going to buy,
Professional.
yeah, $250 machine for something that might happen later on, maybe once a year.
Sure.
This is perfectly fine. This is perfectly adequate for that step, for that little area. This will work fine.
Yep.
You spend, 5-10 minutes on it and you'll get it out and make it look good. And then you can seal it up and you're good. And the blend, it's not going to be as good as a machine polish, but it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's not going to like, oh, it looks horrible. Yeah. It's going to look better than it did before.
Sure. So you just have to know like where your blend areas are and
don't use this in the middle of in the wall of paint.
Yeah.
If this was your boat.
Well, even if you're spot cleaning, and that's the key though. That's an important thing. If you see streaks or you're trying to spot clean something or whatever, and you go and rub an area by hand that's been machine polished, you're probably going to see that.
It's interesting you say that. You're right. When it comes to polishes, absolutely. When you're talking about cleaner waxes, especially cleaner waxes are used a lot for getting rid of black streaks and things of that nature. You really don't see it that much because it is a cleaner wax.
Yep.
I will say this for the audience: cleaner waxes are not polishes.
Yeah.
I say that because of the fact that a lot of people think that a cleaner wax is a polish. It's not.
Yep.
There are polishes that are designed, compounds and polishes.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's go like from compound up to polish and coatings, and we'll discuss that. Then we can get into the wax, traditional carnubas versus polymers and stuff like that. Okay,
so that's a good idea.
A good segue.
So there are cleaners. There are things that clean through chemical, and then there are cleaner waxes. Cleaner waxes have it's usually a product that looks like a polish.
Sure.
It's this cream-based product, but it does a good job of deep cleaning. Gets rid of. Usually, it's used for like black streaks. Now, is
that going to be chemical and abrasive that gets that cleaning done?
It's not abrasive. It's really chemical at that point in time. It's a cream-based chemical as opposed to a liquid spray like a multi-purpose cleaner, all-purpose cleaner, or a degreaser.
Yep.
To use that and then wipe it away, this is going to give you a little bit more of a deeper clean.
Okay.
Using a cream-based carrier is what we call it, or formula. Putting it onto a surface is going to do a deeper clean. It'll still give you that chemical response of extracting that dirt out of it.
Yep.
But it also has a little bit of wax. So it's a great little one step for people that want to have that deep clean to get rid of those black streaks and the exhaust on the sides. And then go ahead and seal it up a little bit. That sealant's not going to be good because you're dealing with something that's diametrically opposed to the other. Cleaning and waxing, removing and protection. You're putting them in one bottle, so they're not going to do everything great. However, for do-it-yourselfers, small jobs, absolutely.
Is it worth going back over it once you're using cleaner wax?
I would. With a protection?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you want something that's going to last longer, then yes, do that by all means. Do that.
Cool.
But cleaner waxes are not polishes. I bring that up because people have used cleaner waxes for polishing, and they again, definitions. We were talking about definitions of words.
Yeah.
And that's something I see all the time. People say, like, "Can you wax my boat?" Well, they mean, can I polish the boat?
Yep.
Or can I do a deep clean on the boat and then apply protection? So definitions of words, very important. Cleaner waxes are not, by the definition of the word, cleaner wax is a clean wax.
So you really think cleaner waxes, what we're saying here is cleaner waxes are better for spot cleaning overall, but they're not a good step in the process from...
Not for a restoration, not if you're taking something that's oxidized. Cleaner waxes are very good for maintaining. If you're in the maintenance, if you're taking maintenance of a boat, you've had the boat, maintained, or it's a new boat, or it's generally in a good shape.
Yeah.
Cleaner wax is an essential thing to have on a boat because it helps you maintain that surface.
Sure.
You don't have time to apply a sealant or a wax or other types of coatings onto the surface. You need something to deep clean and give you a wax that'll last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep. Then you're good.
Then cleaner waxes are essential for maintaining that surface, but it will not bring it back. It's not designed to remove oxidation. If you can't see a shine in your surface, guys, if you can't see reflection, and it's just matte finish, cleaner wax is not going to bring that back. That's when we get into it. That's the transition right now into polishes. And I use the word compounds and polishes.
Sure.
They can be used interchangeably, but we'll stick with compounds as being what is known as a diminishing compound. Diminishing compound. That means that when you pour it out of the bottle, it feels gritty, and then if you keep on rubbing
going away as
exactly. That grit turns into what is known as a lubricating paste.
Sure.
Most of them have it these days. A diminishing compound. You don't want it staying gritty. If it does, it's just going to go right through your paint or surface. Right. Exactly. So diminishing compounds. That's those are what you see on the market. And they get finer and finer, and then you get the what I consider like a subcategory, which is polish. So you got compounds, then to polish.
Sure.
And you got different categories of compounds too. You've got a heavy compound, usually for a matte surface, like we were just talking about, like a totally oxidized surface.
Yeah, which again,
has the shine of
we
this
won't get into
here.
that because that's a whole nother.
That's a whole different
people,
deal.
like quite honestly, have it professionally done. That's a whole nother project in itself. So I like to get into, if your surface needs a little bit. If maybe it needs a little touch up, and then you get into maintaining the shiny.
Yeah, and that I bring that up as a foundation so people understand the difference.
100%.
That you can use if you want to get into polishes, like if you do have an oxidized surface and you want to do it yourself, using something like this as in lieu of a machine, you can use a foam pad like this with this polishing side here. You can go ahead and using a compound. Bring some shine back. Well, you get the machine look, no.
Yeah.
But you can remove it using the compounds, and then if you want to,
especially if it's a small surface and
a step.
Yeah. Or like an edge, kind of like a small, somewhere in between non-skid or whatever, and a cushion that you can kind of work it. And
the fender rubs.
Yeah.
Fender rubs are perfect. That's where you're going to use compounds.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to use polishes to bring that surface back. Having a foam pad on board, understanding the difference between cleaner waxes and polishes. Polishes are going to get the scratches out. Cleaner waxes won't. They'll get the dirt out. They'll get the exhaust out.
Okay, that's a good.
I guess that's there you go. There's the definition, the true definition of the two.
Makes sense. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Go from there.
All right, sounds good.
Just take a little break. So we're back. We just took a short break, and we're going to talk now about finishes basically and sealants. So we're going to get into wax versus polymers and ceramics and some of the things we use to apply those.
Indeed. Okay, so we were talking about the foam pad earlier, the efficacy of using it for cleaner waxes, the efficacy of using it for polishes.
Yep.
Foam pads can also be used for applying sealants. In fact, we were talking about the differences on this one. This has got
one
a
side
polishing,
versus the other.
polishing side, using a sealant side. You don't have to get something like this where it's put together. You can have,
but it's nice because you have to find things around the boat. True. You don't have to have like this product for this and that for that. You can.
If you're doing a small surface, it's nice to polish.
You order some, and you have both depending on what you need to use it for.
Exactly.
Yep.
But the point is foams.
Yep.
Foams really do the best job of applying sealants.
Okay.
I gotta say, for waxes, for sealants, they just do a great job. There are some where a microfiber applicator. This is a bonnet that you guys have that can go on to a usually like a DA machine,
orbital or a DA machine.
Yeah, that works well for that. You can use this for applying sealants too, especially for larger areas.
Yep.
But microfibers can be used for applying sealants, especially the oily ones.
Yep.
There are sealants that have a very liquid consistency to it, and because of the liquid consistency, it's going to absorb into foams. So maybe foams would not be the best situation in that case.
Because they absorb too much.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It'll keep the microfibers carry that product on the surface. So for liquid sealants, liquid waxes, liquid polymers, especially usually polymers.
Yep.
I recommend the microfibers for the cream-based type of sealants, waxes. I would recommend the foams. They just do a better job of spreading evenly.
We touched on it earlier, but I think we can just clarify when we're talking about sealants, let's talk about the surface and when we stop polishing and we get into sealants. Does that make sense? Like, what are you looking at in front of you as a surface that you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to apply a sealant and it doesn't need to be polished anymore or whatever. Okay. It may seem simple, but there is a little bit of a transition there.
There is polishing, is paint correction, is surface correction, it's gel coat correction.
It's a great thing to think about.
That's polishing.
Yep.
We're not talking, when you're talking polishing or compounding, that's what we're talking about, is correcting that surface, restoring that surface, whether it be paint or gel coat. Or even other surfaces too, metal, glass, that all gets restored. But polishing is about restoring that surface to a like new surface. Now we're transitioning into the three words that are used: waxes, sealants, and coatings.
Okay.
Those are pretty much the industry standard terms that are used throughout. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about waxes, sealants, and coatings, we're talking about something that is going to protect. So these are protection. So we've gone in from...
You already have your perfect surface, or your surface looks the way you want it to look.
Right.
That's the key. And this is about keeping it that way.
Exactly. So that's what we're talking about, protection. We're on the protection line now. And this is where we were talking about some accessories, what to use for those protectors, or for those polymers, for those waxes, and for those sealants. Are going to be microfibers for the oils, for cream-based waxes and sealants. Yep. Some are paste. Mm-hmm. Foams do a really good job of spreading this evenly. Yep. And not using a lot of product. Not wasting a lot of product. Sure. Cream-based products and microfibers will absorb readily into it, and you'll end up using a whole lot, trying to get that even surface, right? As opposed to using a foam, where cream-based generally doesn't absorb into the pores as much, and you can use a lot less of that product. Usually, to cover. You use half the product. So,
cool. Awesome.
Save as much of product as you possibly can. Yep. Here, for maintenance, I recommend a DA machine. If we're going to talk about machines, this is where I want to talk about them, because
as far as applying coatings,
as far as applying coatings, because this is where a machine can really come in. If you've got to deal with a big machine for polishing, going back to that, I recommend sticking with the hands. Don't use machines. Get someone that knows what they're doing when it comes to that, because you can quickly destroy a surface if you don't know how to use a machine for polishing.
Agreed.
Okay, for restoring that surface. But when it comes to coatings, a machine is a good idea, especially if you've got a large boat. You can do this, or you can do this, or you can do this, and you're going to be your arms and your shoulders. Save your arms and shoulders. You're going to be doing this all for hours and hours and hours and days.
It won't be consistent.
It won't be consistent. And you'll end up using more product just by the very nature of using a hand product. So this is where I recommend having a machine on board for maintenance, and I recommend a DA. DA is a dual action polisher sander. That's what they're called, dual action, or DA. Common terms, if you go to any tool store, or even your store, DAs. This is where you would get one of these machines. DAs commonly they vibrate, they shake back and forth, as you would get with a sander. With these pads here, these are Velcro backed pads. These are 6-inch, and these are designed for those DAs. But you would get a Velcro backing plate, because generally DAs do not come with a Velcro backing plate. Some do. Some tools do, but some don't. So you always got to make sure.
So you want to check that for sure.
And
you can always ask. That's what we're here for. We do this stuff all the time. So we're happy to help you, point you in the right direction.
There you go. Go make sure they got the right machine. But a DA is a great machine, because you can apply waxes with it. You can apply the sealants, the polymers. This will save you countless hours. And using something like this, you're not going to use as much as you would use with this. Even though I talked about, if you use the wrong material, you can end up using a lot more than you want to.
Sure.
Same goes with hand versus machine, in that if you use this compared to this, no matter what type you're using,
Yeah.
You're going to generally use more product when you're doing it by hand than you are by machine.
Which will cost you.
It's going to cost you.
Expensive.
It does. So I like to do things by machine.
Yep.
When you can. This is very easy to do. You don't have to have really hardly any training when it comes to a DA. It's doing the same thing here, but you're doing it, with a
medium pressure, light pressure. I mean,
that's medium.
Yep. Okay,
medium pressure,
cool.
Not heavy pressure. If you're going too light, it's going to splatter.
Yep.
So just a nice medium pressure back and forth to spread the product. That's what you're doing. You're spreading. You're not polishing. Most people think
you're coating.
That's right.
It's a coating. You're not
That's
polishing.
right. You're not polishing with this machine. You're using it to spread the product evenly.
And then removal. I guess.
And then removal
is,
removal. You're going to be going with from microfibers. I think the best material out there for removing any type of sealant is going to be a microfiber.
Do you use the machine at all with that as well, or
that's
just all by hand?
All by hand.
And
just wipe it
typically,
away.
like what I've found is that you can get a couple microfibers for removing the majority of your material, and then go back with a fresh one.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't get clogged and you get a nice polish to it. And
it depends on the product you're using.
Okay.
It depends on the sealants that you're using. Some require you to let the product sit and dry.
Mm-hmm.
I think like turtle wax.
Sure.
In the old days, like there you got to wax.
Let it
sit and dry, let it haze,
Yep.
and then you go back and wipe it off. In that case, you might want to have a couple of rags just so you can go ahead, do your heavy wiping, and then do your light wiping after that. Most polymers today, the cream base, really it's just a single wipe. So you're going to follow directions. Follow a direction, guys. Always follow the direction. Read the back of those labels.
Nobody wants to read directions.
Nobody wants to read directions.
Just give it a quick glance.
That's one of the biggest problems in the industry, right? Nobody wants to read the back of that bottle. Nevertheless, read the back of the bottle. See how it's supposed to be applied, because some you have to wipe off immediately.
Yeah.
Some because of their quick cures. Some you gotta let sit for a specific time frame. But regardless, when it comes to wiping off a lot of these cream-based ones, you really only need one rag.
Yep.
You just need, or I should say, one microfiber. Don't use rags. Don't
Yeah.
use rags. Use microfibers to wipe it off. It just does a great job of wiping everything off cleanly and getting rid of all that all that residue.
So let's jump into when we're talking about these surfaces and sealants, colored versus, and we can talk a little bit about restoring that surface maybe, but colored versus white on surfaces, and a lot of that may be like really a function of conditions of temperature and that kind of thing too. So maybe that has that effect.
Oh gosh, sure.
Talking about on a lot of these Sportfish boats, you have like the black mask up front, or it's very dark colored. Let's talk about what you think should be done differently on colored or darker surfaces versus bright or white surfaces.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
When it comes to white surfaces, a lot easier to deal with because, especially in South Florida, we're dealing with the sun and things heat up very quickly. Having a white reflective surface really cuts down on the heat load. So you're able to apply sealant. When we're talking about heat, usually we're talking about applying sealants. That's usually the thing that really affects a lot of things is sealants, because sealants are very temperature sensitive. So in that case, a white surface is usually easier to apply on a sunny day in Florida in the summertime.
So you have more flexibility.
You have more flexibility. Darker surfaces, it's just more heat load, right? You get a hotter surface. Generally, if it's too hot to touch, you can't apply sealants.
I was just going to say, put your hand on it and you'll know whether
that's right. If it's too hot to touch, don't apply a sealant. Generally, you're chasing the shade when it comes to cleaning, when it comes to polishing, when it comes to applying sealants.
Yep.
You're chasing the shade. You don't do anything out in the sun because it's too hot.
Yeah.
If you wash in the sun, you better rinse off as quickly as possible because it has a tendency to dry. Cleaning products, whether it be from boat soaps to, your all-purpose cleaners, will dry onto that surface very quickly. So it's easier to mar that surface. You're constantly dealing with salt water. So salt water, gets onto the surface. You're dealing with everything that has to do with heat. It's basically everything's going to quickly dry. Polishes are going to be not as effective unless they're designed for the heat.
Yep.
Because, what are they going to do? They're going to bake onto a surface. So it's like polishing your range while it's on.
Yeah.
You just it's not a good idea.
That's a good analogy.
Um,
And I kind of, not to interrupt, but I want to jump back just a little bit. And I think this has to do with some of those, colored surfaces or darker surfaces. When we talk about restoring a surface, because I think it's kind of real world where you'll either get a little bit of haze to the surface where it needs some restoration, or you'll get maybe water spots or something like that. So what do you suggest as a product that's a final restorative, I guess is probably what it would be, to bring back a colored surface and not get swirl marks, not get into a full top to bottom restoration of that surface, but what's a good touch up, I guess, was say for a dark surface that may have a little haze or water spots to it.
Okay, this is going to sound a little controversial because people take it the wrong way, but vinegar.
Yeah.
If you want to get rid of salt,
that's a great call.
If you want to get rid of saltwater spots, vinegar.
So strip your surface before that.
It's going to strip your surface of waxes and things of that nature. You can't prevent that. But let's say you've got a dark hull, blue hull.
Sure.
You've taken out, on the sea. Yeah. You've come back.
We love that.
Been a
People
hot
don't
day.
believe it, but I say all the time, use vinegar.
It coats, that the heat because of the colored surface. It's gonna bake that salt onto that surface. There's nothing you can do. You can have multiple coatings. You can have ceramic coatings on there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Heat is heat. It's going to bake onto that surface. It's going to bake on top of whatever you got on top of that too. So,
and then how about like a light haze? Like if you have just a little bit of haze to the surface, it's not perfectly shiny.
If you've got a haze, that's what is known as a light oxidation. It's either a marred surface or a light oxidation.
Yep.
And in both cases, you're going to be dealing with, a maintenance polish.
Yep.
Sometimes you need a polish.
Final
sometimes
step polish,
you can do. Sometimes that could be taken care of with the cleaner wax.
Okay.
The cleaner wax has the ability to take away light haze. It cleans off the surface. So if it's, as long as it's not too heavily oxidized.
So maybe try a spot.
Yeah. See if it comes back. Superfine polishes you can use in the same way that a cleaner wax can be used.
Okay.
Superfine. I say superfine polishes. There's some.
No, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, that's not the name of it, but you can use those like a cleaner wax, and they can certainly restore that surface and get rid of that oxidation.
I think we touched base with a few things. Anything? I guess we can kind of jump into the vinyl just very quickly. We talk about colored vinyl versus white vinyl, and I know I've watched a couple of the videos and using their all-purpose cleaner, which is amazing, and then also the carbon guard as a follow-up on that. Does that work on all surfaces vinyl in that way, or
yes?
Okay, so colored surfaces, same thing.
Yep.
Like, okay, very good. I didn't know because some of us, and I always had a tendency to be like, okay, cool, putting this liquid or whatever, paste or white colored, whatever you want to call that liquid, on a vinyl, having concern that it would, leave some kind of white residue or whatever if it's a darker colored surface.
No, actually, you can use that on multiple colored vinyl cushions, things of that nature. Absolutely,
awesome.
You can definitely use that.
So that's good to know. And then clear enclosures. I mean, that's a big thing with center console and Sportfish boats is clear enclosure maintenance. We can get into. We can talk about that for a while too, but just the basics. And you and I discussed it. We've discussed it before. Water, rinsing, just getting as much as you can off of them and washing them as little as possible. Correct?
That's right.
Kind of going from there. And what other tips do you have for clear?
Well, it's all about preventing the scratch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to, guys.
And scratches, a haze is a scratch. So,
yeah,
it's not, doesn't mean like it's a big scratch, but you're using something you shouldn't be, or, the surface isn't clean, or you're trying to polish or protect it when it's not clean.
Right.
You're going to cause those issues.
You can. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What I recommend with the closures is pre-rinsing. I can't say that strongly enough. Pre-rinse, flood the sucker.
Yep.
Before wiping it down, making sure that any debris, a light breeze will bring in some dust.
Yep.
That if you
don't see it, but
that's
it's
right.
there.
If you dry wipe that surface, what you're going to end up with is a very fine scratch. And once polycarbonates like isinglass and strataglass get those scratches in, they can be removed, but they have to be removed professionally, and it's an expensive proposition. So don't dry wipe.
Yeah.
Do not dry wipe those surfaces. Always, if it's in a place where you can't flood it with water, use some sort of detail spray or even a spray bottle with water. Just spray that surface before wiping it. You give it some sort of pre-rinse before you can go ahead.
So when you say, dry, yes, but you're spraying something on it and then working with it. You're not just wiping it with the dry microfiber or anything, even if it's super, super clean or whatever. It doesn't matter. So
I like the chamois. I think that
the wet chamois works if it's clean. Great. Or rinse it really well. Wipe it off.
That's right. But you spray the surface first, even with a wet chamois. I have seen you get a dry surface and you take a wet chamois to it without that pre-rinse beforehand that just to encapsulate some of the dust particles and things and the contamination in there. What you'd end up is even the wet chamois can end up scratching the surface. So always pre-rinse your enclosures.
And how do you feel about quick waxes on enclosures and stuff like that?
That's fine. That's fine.
You think
I have no problem with those.
Like continuous for sealing the surface and maintaining?
Yes, it's a very good idea. I recommend any type of sealant that's designed for clear vinyls, polycarbonates.
Yep.
Those Eisen and strata glasses.
Yep.
Go ahead and put on a sealant.
And it repels a lot of the water too. So it does make that rinse. When you do go to rinse it, it makes it a lot easier.
I was on a boat years ago where we had, it was strata glass, and we were coming down from New York. And we took it, straight down from New York down to Fort Lauderdale.
So it's probably a mess when you started, because it's like in an hour in New York, it seems like.
Oh, I know.
Surface contaminants, but anyway.
But for this purpose, I had cleaned everything. I cleaned the surface off, and I actually did a test. I wanted to see how well these things would do with a sealant. So I put on a sealant on the strata glass. I left half of them were sealed, half of them weren't. We came down after it was a 1 week trip coming down. Had some heavy seas, so these things got clobbered. Even with a daily rinsing, every day we'd have to do the rinse on the boat, and we go ahead and do the fresh rinse. Even with the fresh rinse, by the time we came down and got to Fort Lauderdale, the coated surface was fine. Everything looked good. The uncoated strata glass had salt crystals impregnated in the strata glass. So, protection makes a huge difference, because I had to spend hours and hours and hours just rinsing, slowly dissolving, those salt crystals out of it. And even when they finally came out, because they get impregnated you end up with you would end up with these little blemishes in the surface. So I always recommend some sort of coating, and not just for strata glass, but for almost all the surfaces on the exterior.
How about now, speaking exterior, but when we get to interior, so what are some of your favorite products for interior maintenance? Quick wipe downs, a lot of these boats, interior maintenance is a big thing.
It is. Detail sprays. I recommend detail sprays for the interior, especially if you've got
high gloss finishes.
Yeah, I was going to say high gloss wood.
Stuff like that. If it's a satin finish or matte finish, same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. There are some woods, depending on the finish on the inside, like if it's an oil wood or a French polished wood, and of course you're going to want to use something like Old English, or you're going to use something that's appropriate for that surface. But for high gloss woods that show the fingerprints, if it shows fingerprints, have a detail spray.
But again, if it's high gloss, it's the same as the exterior. If you're not using microfibers, you have to be very careful with what you use, because you're going to scratch it. And over time, you're going to see it.
And that's another thing too. That's what you would use, a detail spray with microfibers on the inside. A lot of stewardesses on large yachts, they have multiple colored, microfibers for, depending on the surface that they're using it.
Countertops versus cabinets versus glass versus whatever.
You don't use the head microfiber for the kitchen.
Yep, exactly.
But it's having different colors of microfibers for categories of what you're going to use. But detail sprays do a great job for the fingerprints, for the everyday stuff, even the dust. On the surfaces. And I think that's what you see a lot.
What I want to talk about is just in between professional details. So if you're a center console owner, or you're an owner operator of a Sportfish, or if you're crew, it's the same thing. I've found that detail sprays are amazing to just keep things nice in between the regular maintenance.
That's right.
I think it's one of those things that is grossly underrated. you don't see a lot of people using them, but I think that they work really well. Would you agree?
They do a great job. They have a little bit of protection in there. They're not designed for deep cleaning.
Nope.
They're not designed for heavy protection. They are designed as a maintainer. That's what they are. They're little maintainers. You use the boat, you use the console. You need to clean off some of the salt right there. Use a detail spray to go ahead and do it. So then pulling out the hose and spraying everything down. You don't have time for that. Spray that we use a little detail spray to go ahead and clean things up, get rid of the fingerprints.
Yep.
It cleans things up. It provides a little bit of protection. That's the nice thing. Some detail sprays do, some don't. But getting a detail spray with a little bit of protection is always a great idea because you get a little bit of that UV protection.
And how do you know if it does have protection or
you can
does
feel
not
it.
or whatever?
Well, the bottle will tell you.
Yeah.
Will tell you if it's got a protection in it. Plus, you can feel it.
Okay.
You can feel that when you first use it, you can say, "Oh, this is."
You
can feel that. Yeah, you can feel that protection.
Yep.
So you definitely, I would definitely go with one that's got a protection in it.
Okay.
Makes a big difference.
So being that we specialize in Sportfish and center console boats, I mean, that's one thing I wanted to get into a little bit with you. I know you have more of a yacht background, but just in general, starting the business and having this amazing product line, what do you see that may be Sportfish or center console specific, or anything that you've learned that applies more directly to these types of boats?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Really everything that that we've created translates perfectly from large yachts to the small boats.
Right down to center console.
They really
small center console boats.
Every boat has to deal with the surfaces. I think that it's just who's dealing with it, whether it be crew, whether it be, detailers, whether it be the individual. So
environmentally friendly makes a difference.
Environmentally friendly,
sure.
absolutely.
And, things that you can use and don't have to worry about, they're not going to do major damage as far as chemicals go. And I think that's a big deal as far as being from regular everyday use to professional, when
I created the products, it wasn't, and I know that some people are going to hate the fact that I say this, but the truth is, when I created the products, yes, I wanted them to be environmentally friendly, but I wanted them most and foremost to work.
Yeah.
Because when I was before I created the line, especially in the late 2000s, I saw a lot of products that are coming out with green leaves and environmentally friendly and stuff like this, and you say, great.
Yeah.
You buy it and it wouldn't work. It wouldn't do the job.
Yeah.
You'd be like, well, great, I'm saving the environment, but my boat's not clean. So we wanted to make sure that the products, first and foremost, worked.
Yep.
And then the secondary consideration was making sure that we didn't destroy the environment by doing that.
Or ourselves,
yeah. Because we're part of the environment. So let's face it, it's going to hurt ourselves. It's going to hurt the environment. So we didn't want to hurt ourselves. We didn't want to, create products that are going to cause us cancer in 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a big part of it too.
For sure.
Yeah. But making sure the products do their job effectively, and don't damage the surfaces, don't damage the environment, don't damage ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it.
Anything else in particular that you feel like we didn't touch on or that we can get into?
Well, we didn't talk about the nano ceramics.
Okay.
I think that's something that...
let's touch on that because I know, I wrote an article for Marlin a little while back, and we did talk wax versus polymer versus ceramics and people's habits and, really liking carnauba waxes still, and then how the transition to polymers, but then ceramics and how a lot of that is professionally applied now.
It is.
And there isn't really a, consumer-based, super easy ceramic.
There isn't.
Out.
There isn't. If you see it and they say do it yourself, it's not a real ceramic.
Yeah.
It's just not. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there are the differences. You've got the waxes, you've got the polymer sealants, and then you've got the ceramics these days. That's the third thing that's really come into the market. And I want to bring up ceramics because, boy, in the last 3 years, that's really taken off in the marine industry. Came from the automotive industry. All the ceramics, when they were created for the automotive industry. And then they crossed over. They said, well, if it's good enough for a car, it's good enough for a boat. And early on, I saw, and much to my horror, the products that were designed for automotive paints being used in the marine industry. And I would see failure after failure after failure, especially that first year. Oh, boy. People would put this stuff off. They would say, make these grand claims, right? A year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years,
Sure.
even longer than the paint would last.
Oh, I know.
I was
Oh
scratching
yeah,
my
by
head.
the way, we have to redo this again in a year. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's a 5-year coating, right? This is a 5 years.
Yeah.
We come back in 5 years. No, every year.
Yeah.
Well, that's a year
I'm
coating.
confused. Yeah.
So the promotions, marketing, really confused a lot of people. And like I said, it was an automotive product that was brought into the marine industry and a lot of failures. And I saw a lot of people, really get angry and hate this product. There are ceramics that have come out into the industry later on that took that time to evaluate what was going on,
Yep.
and have specifically formulated for marine paints and marine gel coats. And understanding the difference, that there are automotive ceramics, that there are marine ceramics now, and that they do last. They don't. I have yet to see a ceramic last 2 years or 3 years or 5 years.
Agreed.
It hasn't been around that long.
Yeah.
It just hasn't. Marine formulated ceramics have been around for about 18 months, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I think that's a stay tuned thing. And
It
that's
really
been
is.
my stance, is there are people that are going to try it and I think it's great. And there are some people that are very successful with it and people that love it. It works in certain applications and not others. I have my own opinions about that, but I think it's kind of a wait and see, how things develop.
It's very new.
Yeah.
It's very new to the industry. But I will say that some of the advantages, the reason why ceramics are even, thought of today and actually becoming very popular today is because of the fact that they have an incredible ability to repel. When it comes to repellency, you really can't get any better. There aren't any polymers out there that can repel the effectiveness of ceramics. When it comes to repelling exhaust, black streak, it doesn't like repel them in the sense that nothing's going to stick to it. You will still get exhaust on your hull. You will still have to wash it off, but the boat soap will wash it off.
Yeah,
I
take care of
mean,
it.
boats rinsing, especially in those first few months, you can just rinse the boat, rinse and shame, and you're fine. So the repellency of contaminants and especially petroleum distillates is incredible when it comes to ceramics. So there's a lot of potential there.
And I think coatings, sorry, I didn't mean to stop you. I just wanted
No.
while we were thinking of it, we talk about like coatings and sealants and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day with boats, I mean, it's 80% repellency.
That's right.
Like, yes, the sun and UV and all that is damaging, but for the most part, if you're using your boat a lot, it's a repellency thing.
That's right.
So.
And that's where it should go. And when we're talking about the coatings, you're like waxes, polymer sealants, and now ceramics. It's about repellency. And I think that's something that's another thing too. Going back to the original point that we started off in this conversation about, one of the things that I see people not doing and not protecting their boat enough. That's if you really want to get that boat to be, looking good, nice and shiny, but well protected, easy to maintain. It really comes down to the protection, and protecting your boat, using a wax, using a polymer, and for your situation, sometimes using a wax if you've got a small boat or a tender, and you've got time to maintain it, every 2 or 3 weeks, go ahead and put a coat of wax on it. By all means, use a wax. Waxes, real waxes, carnauba waxes.
Carnauba waxes, yep.
Incredible repellency. In fact, I would say that
And very high shine.
And very high shine.
Yep.
Yeah. Waxes will always give you incredible repellency, very high shine. Does not have the UV protection of a polymer, so it's not going to last very long. That's why back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we were always waxing our cars every week because that's how long it would last. You would need to wax that car if you wanted that paint to last. Same thing with waxes in the marine industry. They're not going to last very long. So you don't have the longevity, but you do have repellency. You do have a shine. When you go to polymers, polymer sealants, good to use on, medium-sized vessels and into, even into the yacht stage. They will last you months as opposed to weeks. Generally not longer than 6 months at the
I think that's fair to say.
utmost. But
Depending on use and abuse and whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. But polymers will give you better UV protection to prevent from oxidization. and they give you a little bit of a shine, not as much as the waxes. They will give you the repellency from petroleum distillates and things of that nature, but not to the extent of waxes. So you have a trade-off there. You've got the longevity, but you don't have the repellency. And then, of course, the ceramics, which is, again, really a new thing, but and it has to be professionally applied. It has to. And
I agree.
Very expensive.
But there are some of you out there who are professionals. I mean, you may not do it professionally, but you're very meticulous and into it. And if it's something you want to research and try, tread lightly. But it's one of those things.
It takes twice the time to put on a ceramic.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, it's generally the rule of thumb.
If you're good at it.
If you're good at it. If you've got a proper ceramic, it's the time it takes to polish that surface, to restore that surface, and then apply the ceramic, it's double the time.
Yeah.
You've doubled the amount of time, which means that you've doubled the cost of your polishing. So make sure when you are researching ceramics, you find the right one, that you find the right company to apply, that they know what they're doing. There are a lot of companies that are getting into this, and be
careful.
Yeah, they don't.
Tread lightly.
Yeah,
that's all we can leave it at that, because I think
tough.
it's pretty.
It's tough.
Yeah.
When it comes to ceramics, but nevertheless, good stuff. I think the potential is there for ceramics. So we'll see. One
other thing, and we don't have to get too far into it, but it's really, and I think it kind of answers my own question: restoring versus sealing and protecting is gel coat versus paint. Do you have, I don't really want to get too far into it because it's a whole nother topic.
Sure.
But in general, if the surface is being maintained, do you see some products that are better than others for paint versus gel coat? Talking about a perfect surface. So sealants, basically.
Yeah. If you look like
restorative,
new paint.
We can get into a whole nother, on gel coat versus paint.
Sure. When you're talking about gel coat versus paint, the sealants that you're going to be using on that surface are going to be they're going to be virtually identical. Gel coat has a tendency to oxidize faster than paint.
More porous.
It's more porous.
Shot. Yep.
So you're basically going to be looking on light colored gel coats. You're going to be looking at like a cream-based polymer sealant. That's what I would recommend more than a wax. Waxes don't have the UV protection, so it's gonna oxidize faster on the gel coat surface. The advantages of gel coat over paint, though, are that gel coat, is stronger. It's a stronger material and lasts a lot longer.
And you can restore it.
You can wet sand it. It's thicker.
Yep.
You've got that mill thickness, but you can get 30 years out of gel coat.
Hopefully you have that mill thickness.
Right.
Sometimes you don't always have that mill thickness, but
that's true.
That's something you have to be cautious of.
But yeah, if you've got a good gel coat, you can get 20 to 30 years out of gel coat.
Yeah.
If you've got a good gel coat.
Agreed.
As opposed to a paint.
Yep.
Paints generally you should be able to. I know to say this. You should be able to. I'll qualify that. You should be able to get 10 years out of a paint, out of marine.
I was
paint.
going to say 5 to 10 years, depending on the use and maintenance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I think that pretty much covers everything. I do want to we'll do another, video podcast thing that's more specific to the products. So you can stay tuned for that. But I think as far as general conversation and, covering some bases, I think we covered a lot today.
Sounds good.
So thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks again.